welcome to the Uncanny X Minutes. I'm your host, producer James.
And I'm your host, Anastasia.
And we're here to talk about the X-Men movies.
Finally.
But also talk about the comics.
Yes.
Because those two go so hand in hand, and they don't.
They don't. But sometimes one influences the other, and we'll talk about that.
You may be asking yourself, what is Uncanny X Minutes?
It's a great question.
Great question. So what we're here to do, we want to go through the X-Men movies starting chronologically.
Yes.
Like at release order.
Yeah.
Because that
actually makes a difference.
That does make a difference.
With the timeline, let's not.
We got time. We got time. Don't worry. That's things we need to talk about. We're going to attack these movies 10 minutes at a time. I think there's enough going on. That's a good amount.
Listen,
let's be honest.
That is absolutely required in order to leash us to an appropriate amount of time for you to listen to something. Yeah, right? Otherwise, we'd be here all day.
Because here's the thing. We wanted to approach these movies from a comic book perspective. Because I didn't realize until a certain point that the movies are not a lot like the comics. I always thought like, oh, they did the comics well. No, they did not.
They don't.
They don't. And that's fine.
That's fine.
I realize I like characters more when I read them in the comic books. And then I watch the movies and I'm like, who are you? That's not Storm.
But
that's not Storm.
It is its own thing.
But it is its own thing.
And then that's the fun part still.
I do love the movie still. Don't get me wrong. Same. But we want to come at it from sort of a research perspective and to bring some knowledge for those who don't have time to read so many comics.
Yeah. Even if you did, I just don't even think you could.
No. So we're going to try.
Some of those are hard to get a hold of.
And that's the thing. We're going to try doing as much knowledge as we can, as much knowledge as we have. Maybe we'll be wrong. There's things we're going to get slightly incorrect. We might have to come in every episode and be like, okay, so we have a little redaction.
Yeah, errors. Build that in. Because also, we're going to try to do our research and think about those things. But also, I'm going to be talking off the cuff, things that I think I remember about the X-Men.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I don't, or maybe I remember it wrong, or maybe I was 12 when I read it. So
right, or maybe the canon has changed. Maybe you're not wrong. Maybe the retcon's wrong.
I refuse to be beholden to the retcons because I know what I know is just my personal thoughts on it. I know 100% that half the things that I think I know has been retconned in some way, and I just accept that, and that's just part of what you're signing up for.
I do love trying to keep up on a good retcon, though.
I'm glad you do. One of us needs to do that.
I think it's because for me, a retcon is just like, you know what? You've painted us into a corner, and I don't like that. Or you know what would be interesting is if that didn't actually happen.
I can't wait to talk about the Phoenix Saga with you.
Let's do it. Wait till movie 3.
Yeah. And then movie, 6 or
no,
7?
Farther.
9?
It's the last one.
Oh yeah, that is the most recent one.
I don't even know how many movies there are.
I don't keep them in
12. Is there 12?
Oh my God, there's not 12.
13 if you count I think with the Deadpools.
Which I don't count, but I have seen the Deadpool with Cable.
I do count them.
I've seen the Deadpool with Cable. I refuse to.
You saw Deadpool 2? You didn't see Deadpool 1?
Absolutely, because Cable's in Deadpool 2.
I mean, yes. Absolutely.
That's why we're here. I bring that kind of energy. If I don't get an X-Man in Deadpool 1, I'm not going to watch.
I am an apologetic moviegoer.
Yeah.
Oh, did you make an X-Men movie? I'm there.
Do you consider Deadpool X-Men?
Yes, I do consider Deadpool
Great,
X-Men.
I can't wait to find this with you.
Mostly because so does apparently Fox.
Just because Fox thinks a lot of things.
Right,
James.
But if you watch the Deadpool movies, there's a lot of X-Men in them, so he is always X-Men adjacent.
Yeah, well, because
he's not in Avengers.
Again, this is
he's in the X-Men universe.
This is related to corporate ownership and less about. But yes, I get it. I mean, it's a funny joke that has now become part of the canon. If you look at if you read the Krakoa era Deadpool, it's a thing.
This will tell you enough about me.
Yes,
I went to the Dark Phoenix fan screening. I had a medallion that said so. They handed out these little keychains.
Do you still have it?
It broke. I think I still have the medallion, but the keychain broke.
Devastating.
I do have the card still from that screening.
I love that.
So
I wish I had
there was only a dozen of us there in an IMAX screening.
I like this. What is my weirdest thing of X-Men propaganda that I own in my home? James is snorting out his beer. I think that
propaganda.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. But
marketing is what we call it.
I think it's actually one of the newest pieces that I've gotten, which is one of the official invitation for the San Diego Comic-Con X-Men like Krakoan themed ball that they had. And that, thank you, Mike Richko, for that. Shout out to you. You're a real friend. He brought that
that's
for
pretty
me.
good. That's pretty good.
That's my weirdest one I've got. And that should tell you the depth of our obsession.
Oh boy. Yep. It sure does. Who are we?
Yeah.
Who are you?
I'm Stosh.
Hi, Stosh.
I'm on Pop Culture Roll Call.
Sure are.
Yeah, I've been in some other podcasts too. Most defunct at this point, but the major one is Pop Culture Roll Call. I'm sure you've heard me, and I am an X-Men fan. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. What kind of X-Men fan are you? Would you say?
Rabid.
I talked to a coworker at work because I was wearing a Cyclops was right shirt.
Yeah.
And he said, we need to be best friends. Firstly, we'll talk later. That was the first interaction I had with him. He then was like, what kind of fan are you? And I was like, I never thought of that question before.
It's a good question.
Because I dabble in all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, at the moment, definitely comics. But if you would ask me 10 years ago, it'd have been movies.
Interesting. I think it's shifted. First of all, I wanted to say X-Men fans on site. Like if you're wearing an X-Men shirt and I wear an X-Men shirt, we're going to bond. Like we've already, like it's very specific. like the Marvel Universe, you can kind of stumble upon liking Iron Man or Captain America or whatever. But man, if you like the X-Men, you're a weirdo like me.
My daughter started to get into the X-Men. She dressed up as Jubilee for Halloween.
I know.
And I had to explain to her there are two Marvel universes. Yeah. There is the Avengers Marvel universe.
Yes.
And there is the X-Men universe.
Yes.
They exist in the same world.
Yeah.
But they don't. Until they need to interact.
It's truly like one of my favorite things is whenever mostly S.H.I.E.L.D., primarily Maria Hill, has to deal with the X-Men.
Yeah.
And like whenever I see, it's always great to see comic panels of her just being like, I've got to call the mutant people, and I hate that. I hate them, not like specifically like in a racial way that the rest of the universe sometimes does.
Yeah.
But specifically in a way where she's just like, their bullshit is so insane that
it is
I
a
don't want to
political
deal
minefield.
with it. It is, and it's also exhausting.
And it's gotten worse.
Yes.
In the comics.
X-Men is a soap opera at its core.
Sure.
And it is very funny to me when other characters of the Marvel Universe recognize them as such.
Yeah. Where's your history in the X-Men? I guess I should say. Like how, because you said it changes depending.
It does.
It's changed, I suppose.
It has. I in my earliest years, and I don't know which cart and horse what went first. I do remember like very two specific things. One is which I think I share with a lot of people of a certain age, which is the animated series, the X-Men animated series. Very formative television show for me. I watched that religiously.
Yeah.
The other thing was that my uncle and aunt had a black and white collection, a big fatty like book that was the X-Men, like a bunch of like collections of the X-Men comic books, primarily the ones around the Phoenix Saga.
Okay.
And so whenever I was there, and I was there pretty often, I grew up with my cousins, we were around the same age, so we went to the same school, so I was there at their house a lot, and I went through that giant tome like it was a godsend. It was just like I had never read. That was my first comic book reading for sure. Reading through those tomes and trying to pick up this thread where you get dropped into the Phoenix Saga and not knowing who Jean Grey is and then trying to put the pieces together is insane. And it was huge and it was a great collection. I have a really strong space in my heart for that. I kind of dropped off the X-Men after that. As through like high school, I got into manga and anime that kind of took over more of my life. And then I've seen a lot of the movies, not all of them. And especially like the ones that maybe are X-Men, maybe are not X-Men, specifically Deadpool, things like that. I haven't seen all of those. And I just saw the New Mutants in part this past year.
Right.
So
in part due to me.
And big part due to you.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate. So like it started real high, then we dropped down
yours
for a
is,
little.
I mean, yours is comics heavy.
Very much so, I think. I mean, besides the TV show, pretty comics heavy and very specific.
The animated
era.
series is a wild horse because like it is a popular thing that does change things about the comics, but is in its heart more accurate to the comics than the movies.
Absolutely. I think so too.
So if you like the animated series, you probably would like the comics.
They do a really good job. I think I would fight for my life for the animated series. I really do.
That is,
really
that's how my kid got into it. She just kind of walked in while I was watching it and sat down and was like, "Who's this? Who's that? Who's that other one?"
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, how else would she find Jubilee?
Right.
That's it. That's how you do it.
And yeah, you know what? Me too. Me too,
right?
babe. I also love Jubilee. How about you? Where's your
my history
allegiances?
is strange. My delving into comic books, period, were not the comic books. My uncle collected comic book cards.
Oh.
Okay. So he was collecting the 1991 DC series.
Okay.
And he bought a bunch of packs and handed me his extras. So he just handed me like a stack of DC comic cards. So I collected, I have that entire series still.
Wow.
Like from 1991.
That's incredible, actually.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And then I think the next year I started collecting like the X-Men cards because of
the animated series.
Well, maybe it wasn't the animated series that did it.
No, because that's 91. Yeah, 92.
Yeah, 92. Yeah, that's right. So
it
was the like real fancy, like, oh, great art comic cards. I started collecting those.
Yeah.
I think around the same time I started watching the cartoon.
Yeah.
And then I didn't read a ton of the comics as a kid.
Really?
Because I lived in the middle of nowhere and comics were not as easy to find. So I have some random single issues.
Okay.
And I had one book similar to what you were saying, but it was just like one small, like it almost looked like a manga.
Oh, okay.
It's like manga size, black and white.
Okay.
The arcade story, like the first one with
really?
Spider-Man.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
it
was a
good
great
story.
It's a great
story.
story. I wish I still had that book. I do not. And then I got into the movies. But I'm a movies guy. Like I went to film school, like movies. I worked at a Hollywood Video.
Yeah.
Movies have always been my thing. So I think almost every single X-Men movie I saw in the theaters.
Okay.
I met my wife going to see X-Men 2. It has always been a part of so for me, I've seen all the movies.
Yeah.
I own all the movies.
Yes.
I've seen them multiple times.
Yes.
I was telling your husband that I've seen New Mutants at least 3 or 4 times, and he said, why?
He's such an ass.
And he's sitting next to you.
Yeah, it's okay. He's paying too.
Okay.
It's fine.
He's fine. So for me, I did jump back into the comics. Well, I went back into comics around Civil War.
Okay.
But reading Marvel comics, not as specifically X-Men. And then I started then I found myself diverging. I was like, oh, that's right. The X-Men are great.
Yes.
And then read a ton of X-Men around then, up to maybe AVX, a little bit after that. Okay. And then a little bit of a break, jumped back in the Krakoa era because everybody did. We're
all back in there. I guess I didn't mention that. I did come back to the X-Men in the a little bit in the early 2000s. I read the Gambit solo series, which is a very specific thing to really do. and then the Krakoan era and the stuff kind of leading up to the Krakoan era, got me back into it. My aforementioned husband loves comic books. He is an Avengers man, though. We don't talk about them. I know it's tough. We get through it. We all have our
opposites
challenges.
Attract. It's fine. It's fine.
I'm not a Wolverine fan. You'll hear this as we go through these movies, but he was willing to read Wolverine and the X-Men. And when he came to me and he's like, Staj.
Now we're talking like Wolverine takes over the school. And,
the Jean Grey
that's
school.
That's a good one.
And he's like, Staj, you've got to read Wolverine and the X-Men. You have to do this. Yeah. You love the X-Men. I know you hate Wolverine, but you've got to read it. And that just, since then, it's been like, without counting like personal, just like not having free time. Other than that, I've been even going back reading AVX, doing like kind of chewing that. I started reading Exiles, the 2000 series, chewing through that. You loaned me Cable and Deadpool, which I was going through. I've gotten through half of it. So yeah, it's a little scattered, but like it's much more comics heavy than movie. I've seen all the movies, but I don't love them the way that I love the comics.
Oh, see, so I love the movies, but I think I loved the movies from a standpoint of I didn't know any better.
Fair enough.
So like I loved what it was given to me. I love seeing a character I love on screen. Love it. Mm-hmm. I went and saw the Green Lantern movie.
Me too,
and didn't hate it. Then I watched it later and was like, no, it is bad. But I still like seeing Green Lantern do his thing.
Yeah.
And there's a joy in that I really love.
I do. I think so too. There is a joy in seeing your characters come to life. And I think a lot of the TV shows, like I think I've indulged a little bit more in those, but either way, I think I have watched most of it. I know a God-forsaken amount of X-Men knowledge just because of the things that I've read through the years or the things that I like go back and look up, over time, being like, I'm in the middle of this comic and I'm like, they're referencing Jubilee's baby. I'm like, who the is Jubilee's baby? And then I'm like down a rabbit hole, right? Like, so, you piece all that stuff together and I've got a very weird set of information in this brain.
It's funny. I do the opposite. I glaze over information that I don't know. And then I'll revisit and go, oh, that makes more sense.
I like that.
I was rereading... Oh man, Second Coming, I think it was. And I was just like, oh, that's who all these people are. It's like they sounded familiar enough, but I didn't know anything about them. And now I'm like, oh, I know about you. Oh, I know who you are. Don't you worry about it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It's hard to retain, I think, sometimes for me. I know I'll forget because there's just so much to go through and try to remember.
There's so much.
So I'm like, I must get to the bottom of this now. So
I think to wrap this up, let's both talk about maybe our favorite run or characters maybe of the X-Men universe.
I love this. I am a fan of the Claremont era X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. I'm a reader in comic books. I read the text.
You love some dialogue.
I love me some dialogue, okay? I love me some dialogue. I like when the poor artist is trying to fit in pictures around Claremont's text.
Poor artists.
poor artists. They did a great job, though. Honestly, mad respect. I love the Claremont era, and I also really like the original run of the New Mutants, which is part of the reason that movie kind of is on.
It hits wrong for you?
Hits a little weird for me in tone, but I really like them. Those are, I think, of my older things. And of course, I'm not going to lie, the Krakoan era and Wolverine and the X-Men, I think is better. I love Wolverine and the X-Men so much. I basically have had consistent favorite characters, but Wolverine and the X-Men added Quentin Quire to that list of my favorite X-Men.
Agreed. That is absolutely where Quentin Quire comes in. Yes. That you're like, yo, I see you.
This is actually great.
I see you.
If you have not watched, read, done anything with the X-Men anytime, and you're like, I really don't want to start wading through continuity and be confused, Wolverine and the X-Men is in the school. Yeah. So, and it's simple. See, for me, I really like, that was when I was picking up week to week, and I was getting both Uncanny X-Men and Wolverine and the X-Men. So for those that don't know, this happens post Avengers versus X-Men, where Cyclops, actually, let's go ahead and say this, we're going to spoil a bunch of the comics. Oh yeah, we should have probably started at the top. We're going to spoil a bunch of stuff because that's the only way you can talk about half of this stuff. Yeah, we can't talk around this. The end of Avengers versus X-Men ends with Cyclops killing Professor X. Spoiler alert, not for too long. He eventually comes back. It's a comic book. How many times has Professor X died? I don't know. We'll have to find a tally. Oh my God, I would love to keep a tally, but I mean, sometimes he fakes his death, but sometimes he died and then they pretend like he faked death through a retcon, and see, that's the kind of shit you can't keep track of. That's the stuff I want. So anyway, Cyclops is on the run. Yeah, he is now a fugitive, and Wolverine is now running the Professor X School for Higher Learning, which he then renames to the Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters, I believe. Yes, that's so. You have two books running. You for pulling that out of your head. You got two books running. Wolverine as the schoolmaster. Yeah. With like half of the X-Men. Mm-hmm. And Cyclops basically being Magneto with Magneto. Yeah. Just grabbing mutants all over the world. Yeah, it's kind of really like the first X-Men, right? Where you had the Hellfire Club's Emma Frost running her own school in Boston. Right. Which is, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name right now. It'll come to me and I'll be really mad about it later. That kind of tension where like one of the early comic runs are basically like them trying to get to students first. Right. And then people defecting based on like their emotional states and like their breakups, which is incredible. Right. They just called it the Massachusetts Academy. The Massachusetts Academy. I thought it had a different name, but sure, that works. But yeah, listen, I was like, I know it's in Boston. Also, fun fact, she's from Boston. Her accent is fake. just a little tidbit of things that you might want to know about Emma Frost.
Like in the comics, she puts on a fake accent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
Everyone thinks she's British. No, she's from Boston.
Amazing. So yeah, you've got Wolverine in the Academy. You've got Cyclops out of the Weapon X facility in Canada. And they're both trying to catch the new mutants that are popping up all around the world.
Yeah.
Because a bunch of new mutants pop up there that are still hanging around and are very important in the Krakoan era.
Very important to the Krakoan era.
So like,
and it's the Battle of the Atom era, because like that little mini series comes through during that time, and I think also the original 5 when they come back from time happens during that period too. Wolverine and the X-Men can really get you into a lot of the other comics, but does not require you to read the other stuff, which is why it's a good starting spot.
I realized when prepping for episode 1 of this show that it was about 38 years of comics before the first X-Men movie came out.
Yeah.
And that was 20 some years ago.
Yeah.
Which means so much X-Men comics have come out since the movies existed.
Yeah.
And that is the chunk that I have read.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I think it's close for me.
Because like I have read, I guess I was going to what I like.
Yeah, please.
Because I have read not so much of the old stuff. Like I've read the Dark Phoenix saga. I have read a little bit of Claremont, but like I get bogged down in the wordiness.
That's fair.
For sure. I do like the more quote unquote modern, like 2000 on X-Men. Like I just finished reading Age of Apocalypse for the first time.
Oh, so good.
Which here's the weird thing about me.
Yeah.
I had Wizard magazine during that era.
Oh.
I had a subscription to Wizard magazine and read all about Age of Apocalypse and read about all sorts of different comic book events that went on, but didn't read the comics because I couldn't find the comics anywhere.
That makes a lot of sense. I was based in Chicago. My dad collected Fantastic Four, so he would take me to the comic book store.
So you, whatever.
So yeah. It's a little different.
Nepo reader over here.
A Nepo comic book baby.
Yeah, I get it. Your dad was a nerd. All our dads can't be nerds, okay? Dad was a blue collar worker that didn't read comics.
Shout out to you, Dad. Salute.
So for me, it was, I mean, honestly, what you were saying, that sort of era on, I was collecting those comics week to week. Like I got back into doing single issues, and that was some of the, and maybe it was, part of me is like, oh, I liked it because I was into it then, and it was available to me, and I was reading it week to week, like you're meant to. But then the other half of me is like, no, other people like that too. So it wasn't just me. Other people like that. I don't know, that Krakoan era is so solid, but I think you're right. The Uncanny X-Men, Wolverine and the X-Men going at the same time was really good. Yeah.
I love Krakoa, and I think it's great. I think it's one of the best like comic book runs I've read in a long time. And I was reading, like we mentioned earlier, my husband's out of the, he's not an X-Men person. He reads other comic books. So sometimes I have to read those too. And I still think out of all those, I really like the Krakoan era a lot. Yeah. But Wolverine and the X-Men, I think, is small enough. Krakoa is too big. It's really grabbing a lot of stuff. It is big. I think the fact that you have two main comics that you can follow. That's true. Made that a little more easier to consume. But it was at a time where people weren't eating it all up. Like that Krakoa, they give it to you and you're like, yes, yes, yes. I tried at one point reading everything. And I was reading everything. And I had to drop stories that I was like, I don't care about Excalibur. In the Krakoan era. I'm reading it and I'm like, I read some of it and I was just like, every time I get to an Excalibur issue, I find myself having a hard time getting through it. It felt like work. Excalibur's tone really shifted. I think like in my opinion, compared to, again, the early runs of Excalibur. This is hard too, because like I know there's a middle ground in the 2000s where I didn't read the stuff where it got grimdark and I'm like, I dropped it. I was like, nah. I think that's also, I probably would have told you the Messiah storyline, like Messiah Complex, Messiah War, Second Coming. I would have said that. I started rereading it lately and it's a little too grim. It's grim. It's a little grim, which isn't bad. I still like it. Yeah. But boy, is it grim. And I forgot how grim it can get. AVX kind of is grim too. Yeah. Like it's supposed to be funny. You think crossovers would be supposed to be funny, but it isn't. And where I think Krakoa's gotten a nice blend, but it is also the tone of comics, the tone of movies even. Speaking of. All that was present. Yeah.
and it's funny. I almost want to say it's like there's so much dark stuff that happens in the world. We needed things to lighten up a little bit in our comics, in our movies, and everything. So like the lighter tones are a little more palatable now.
Yeah, I think so too.
So yeah,
I do think like that you need the Jack Kirby of it all, really. I think is what it boils down to. Like I think that stuff is always really fun, and I think it's a lot easier to fall in love with characters and like them when you have a little bit of a lighter tone, because you're already comic books have so much stuff that you either need to ignore or be like willing to deep dive if you don't want to miss something.
Yeah,
and so if you're doing that while also trying to keep hold of a complicated, intense plot, I think can be really hard. Yeah. So if you want to get introduced to something, sticking with some of the lighter stuff is actually probably better for you.
Yeah.
Just to get your hands around it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the mistake the movies make sometimes, especially with the early ones. Could have used a bit of levity, perhaps.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, and some of the later movies do have a little more levity. Like
absolutely.
First Class was a nice palette cleanse where you're like, okay, thank you. It's a little more bright. It's a little more colorful. It's a little lighter.
I like First Class.
So yeah, I agree. I mean, I say a little lighter, and there's still some.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we go back to Nazi camps and that one, but still.
And that's the movie we consider light. So buckle up.
So yes, every episode we are going to cover 10 minutes of a movie. So it should take us, I actually, I crunched the numbers here.
Ooh,
it will take us 11 episodes to get through the first movie.
Okay. That seems doable.
Right? Not too bad. So this way we want to concentrate more on being able to deep dive into a character or like whatever happens in the scenes. Like, has that happened in the comic books, or is that important? Does it happen enough, or is it just kind of for the movie? Mm-hmm. Like, are they referencing something? Maybe not. We kind of want to circle around who are these characters in the comics and how are they being portrayed on screen, kind of compare, contrast.
And we might choose not to talk about something because we want to talk about it when it's more of a central theme later. So we're going to be picking and choosing what we're talking about it for those 10 minutes, because a lot of the themes carry on through whole movies or even whole series.
Or for example, first 10 minutes of the first movie, we're introduced to Magneto's origin story, which then gets expanded in a later movie. So we might hold off on some of that to be expanded later.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not going to be comprehensive of everything that first 10 minutes touches. We don't have that kind of time.
I don't want to take that kind of time. That's why I'm at 10 minutes chunks, and we can come back to things when they come back.
Yeah.
We'll see you next episode for the first 10 minutes of X-Men.
Woo!